Hey everybody, so I realized that I have not done any mini painting videos in over a month. I've been doing all kinds of terrain stuff for Frostgrave. Haven't done any D&D stuff, and but this is these Frostgrave. It's you could definitely use D&D minis. I think there's an interview with Joe McCullough, and he's talking about how much he loves D&D and then skirmish games, and he just stuck them together. But yeah, so these guys are almost all of these minis are from Game of Thrones. Or not Game of Thrones, Song of Fire and Ice, but it's Bolton's Bastard Girls. They're John Bolton's dogs, and then a couple of archers. They're from a set. If you want to get these guys, you don't have to buy the box. You can buy them loose on eBay. People will split up the boxes on eBay. But this is a long video. I shot most of this video while I was couldn't sleep. And it was midnight, 2 in the morning or something, and I ramble a little bit, it's just a thing. Sorry, I ramble, I talk a lot, and yeah, I did not edit this video down into a short thing, but you get to hear everything that's going on inside my head while I'm painting, and I explain everything in a lot of detail. So it's a long video, maybe get a drink or something. Just post up somewhere, and yeah, we'll paint some war dogs and some archers for Frostgrave D&D Song of Fire and Ice. So yeah, I'm gonna take a break from doing terrain stuff, and I'm gonna work on my Frostgrave Warband. So I do have I have plenty of guys that I painted up for D&D and stuff like this, but what I wanted to do was I wanted to get a nice warband to do a campaign with, and I wanted to do everybody on 30mm bases. These are Game of Thrones, or sorry, Song of Fire and Ice minis. Gorgeous minis. I've been looking for an excuse. I've been kind of hiding some of these guys in my pile of shame for a while, and I've been looking for an excuse to use them. It was it's like FOMO, fear of missing out, where you're well, what if they stop selling those? What if they stop making that game? I bought a bunch, and then I've got other stuff too. I've got let's see, Massive Darkness guys. This is one of my favorite Barbarian minis. This is from Massive Darkness, and then let's see, I've got some Whiz Kids, NECA miniatures. These are, D&D official miniatures. The one thing that's cool about the D&D minis is that with the casters and things like that, they have tons and tons of spellcaster miniatures, because, D&D, right? And then it comes with sort of the high level version and then the low level version. So they make great a Wizards and Apprentices for Frostgrave. And then I rebase these guys too. And this is just some foam stuff. Let's see, I've got some board game stuff, Conan, another one of my favorite Wizard miniatures. But what I really need is I need warhounds, and then I need archers. Yeah, so I've got some archers. I've got some Game of Thrones, or some Song of Fire and Ice archers, and then I've got Song of Fire and Ice hounds, and then it's just some various kind of board game stuff. That's all the same scale. So everybody's gonna get a 30mm base. Game of Thrones comes on a 30mm base, and then but yeah, today I'm gonna paint up some hounds and some Song of Fire and Ice archers, some random archers. So first off, I'm gonna do a little bit of basing. I did rebase this guy. You know, he's got like this kind of cobblestone thing going on, herringbone brick pattern thing, because he's on a slaughter base, or he has slaughter base, you know, feet, and so I want everybody to be on, you know, 30 mil bases. And then this is just some foam I just kind of drew on there with the pen, cut it out with the X-Acto. But these guys, their feet are too small to really, I don't want to mess with rebasing them. That's, you know, part of the reason why they've got these rocks around their feet. So yeah, I'm just gonna kind of build up some little rocks around their bases until I'm happy, you know, with how that looks. I've been going for, you know, generic rocks and like scorched earth and like cobblestones works really well for minis in my opinion, because they just kind of fit in anywhere, like any kind of setting. So yeah. So I'm just gonna super glue down some little pieces of gravel. I've got like you know, a thing of like aquarium gravel and stuff from like leftover from landscaping, and I'm gonna super glue those down with some gel, heavy kind of gel super glue, and then I'm gonna go over that with some fine sand, but I'm gonna use PVA to do that because I want to like push it around and stuff. I want to be able to have a little bit more working time, etc. Next up, I'm going to come in with some watered down PVA glue, or you know, school glue, and I want it kind of pretty runny. Because I want the basically I want to be able to brush it on and then push it around on the bases. Nice crapped out brush. Don't use your nice brushes for painting with glue. So one of the reasons why I like using PVA glue with this step is because I can brush it around. Like I can really control it. It has a really long working time. It takes a long time to dry. And if it gets somewhere where I don't want it, I can control that. So I just have some sand that's like really fine grit that I sifted out. I'm just gonna put that around the base. And then if it gets somewhere where I don't want it with the PVA, like on a paw or on top of the rocks or something, I can just brush it off with a little bit of water, help it to settle into the cracks where I want it. Perfect. Okay, time to have a priming party. Yeah, I just have a whole bunch of stuff like these guys. I'm gonna use all these guys for Frostgrave. Got like wizards, you know, yeah, you get it. Camera doesn't want to focus. Yeah, but I've also got, this is like a piece of aquarium decor that I want to use for Frostgrave too. And a whole bunch of giant rats. I mean, I'll probably use all this stuff for D&D too, but mainly what I want to use them for right now is Frostgrave. So yeah, I'm gonna prime all of these guys black, completely black, jet black all over, and then I'm gonna spray them top down with a lighter color to get some highlights. And I'm going to use some Vallejo surface primer. And I'm gonna use one of these cheapo airbrushes to do this part, because basically these guys are really easy to clean and take apart, and this one works at a higher PSI, so it just dumps paint out. So yeah, I'm gonna use this one. Okay, now that everybody's primed black and you know, have really good coverage on them, I'm gonna go ahead and do a little bit of Zenithal prime on them, and I'm gonna use an airbrush that has a little more control. So this is a top fed airbrush, and I can, you know, mix colors in here and stuff. I'm just gonna use some Air Force or US Vallejo Model Air light gray, and I'm going to shoot these guys top down from like a 45-degree angle actually, and I want to face everybody in the same direction because I like to make focal points on faces when I'm painting minis, like the light sort of coming from this direction. So I'm gonna give more of an even coat from this direction, then turn them, and then sort of make it look like the sun is coming down at this angle for the most part. Alright, so after doing the airbrush, you can see kind of what these guys look like, what they're, you can focus right there. You can see like how they've got those natural highlights and shadows in. So, but I'm just going to do a little bit of dry brushing on these guys, and I'm going to use some P3 Sickly Skin. It's kind of just an off-white, like a cool white. It has a little tiny bit of like green in it. It's kind of like an aspen white, I guess. These guys, they're good. Like what I think I'm gonna do with these guys, they kind of look like Cane Corsos to me, or like Rottweilers, you know, and like they're like direct descendants of Roman war dogs. So I'm thinking I'm just gonna do them like Cane Corsos or Rottweilers, like they basically have the same colors. And then these guys maybe make them look sort of like Dobermans. So they don't need to go any lighter. They're just gonna stay dark. But I'm gonna do these guys to get all of their little details on their cloaks and stuff. I love these. These are Game of Thrones or Song of Fire and Ice that these are going to be perfect for like Rangers or Shadow Deep or D&D or whatever. Okay, so just a little bit of dry brush with a soft makeup brush. I'm gonna dab a bunch off on this MDF firsthand, and then come down in the same motion, like what natural light. Okay, so I think I'm just gonna bang these guys out real quick with some washes, basically. You know, King Corsos, like they can be like dark brown, kind of black, tan colored, white, you know, typically have a lighter underbelly, lighter paws. You know, same with Dobermans. So I'm just gonna use some game ink. I'm gonna use some black game ink. And then, let's see, I've got some yellow here. I think I want a sepia too for like a mid-tone. Just gonna start with that for a palette. Alright, and then I'm gonna blend in some browns, a little bit of yellow. So I'm just trying to sort of blend these colors together while it's still wet to get a nice base layer with some nice, you know, blended tones. And I can go back and do details later, but this is going to be like my base color layer, you know. So I just want to kind of make those tones look smooth when I'm doing this part, when I've got the wet palette out and I'm doing wet blending. So sometimes I'll put down like a layer of ink or something, you know, like that, that gets some general tone, and then I'll sort of blend the colors together as I go, as I'm working on them. And then like I'll use a piece of like MDF or cardboard or something like that, and then just kind of make sure that I have a good tip and that my ferrule isn't just flooded with paint. And then I'll just kind of gently like blend those colors together. And if I have too much paint, I'll just dab it off, or, you know, grab a little bit. Alright, so that's how these guys look when I'm done with the wet blending layer. Like you can see, you do get like coffee staining, and if you haven't completely taken off every little seam line, they're definitely going to show up. So I'm going to have to fix that later, but for the most part, they're all, you know, that's 90% of the way there. So I'm going to set these guys aside. I'm going to let them dry. I'm not going to touch them. Just going to let them dry. And then I'm going to go to work on my rangers, or my archers. And yeah, I'm going to use the same ink wash to just get some general tone, like on these guys' bases. Especially like around the rocks, like where I want to create shadows and stuff. And I'm planning on doing some like snow effects or something on these later. So it's probably I'm not gonna spend too much time on like the rocks and stuff, but I do want to make that contrast pop out. But I can use some of this sepia to make a leather. Can wash these guys, let's see. I think I want them to look like they do have like leather armor, definitely leather boots. Green capes, or maybe like a dark gray, maybe like Night's Watch kind of looking capes, since they're supposed to be in the frozen city and maybe have a little bit of camouflage. I need to look up some concept art. I'm gonna do some dark greens on these guys. Again, I'm gonna use some game ink for my base layer, just to get into all those little nooks and crannies and stuff. Develop some contrast, preserve my Zenithal paint job for later. I think these guys are definitely going to have some nice green cloaks. Maybe olive. Maybe kind of mix up a little bit of an olive. Try to control the coffee staining and pooling a little bit. But this is my base layer. Doesn't really matter too much at this point. Okay, so I've got the basic paint scheme done on these guys. You know, going for like the classic kind of Robin Hood look. But I want to make sure that the you know, I preserve my, I'm trying not to let things pool too much, and I'm trying to preserve my airbrush, you know, my lights and darks, but I want to make sure that this stuff is the right opacity. So I'm just going to keep kind of going over and glazing, because I want the olive green to be nice and dark. Before I go on to the next step, before I just, you know, let these guys dry and put the wet palette away. So I'm just gonna go ahead and keep glazing on more colors until I'm happy with them. And then I'm going to let them get bone dry before I go on to the next part, which is going to be the detail work. But this is just going to give me that base layer of color, of a foundation to work from. But they're like most of the way there. Definitely coming along. And I think I'll do flesh tones like very last. Actually, you look pretty good. Just leave you alone. Okay, everybody's pretty much got their right opacity, saturation of their color and stuff. The last thing I'm gonna do is do some flesh tones on these guys, but like these dobies, they're looking great. My King Corsos looking like good boys. So yeah, I'm just gonna use a little bit of a flush wash before last step, before I put away the wet palette. I'm gonna use some of this P3 Cosite flesh wash. It's my favorite flesh wash, favorite ink wash, and I'm just going to use that for the skin tones on these guys. And then I'm going to let these guys get nice and bone dry, make myself some dinner. And it's okay if it's pooling in the places where I want it to pool. It's okay if it pools in his eye sockets and in his mouth and stuff, in his holes in his head. I just don't want it to pool like on the top of his forehead. A little bit of this stuff goes a long way though. It's pretty intense ink. All right, good to go. Okay, so yeah, these guys are nice and bone dry. I when I'm doing wet palette stuff, I like to make sure that stuff is nice and bone dry, before I go on and do any dry brushing or any edge highlighting. And you'll notice like coffee staining, later, after you do wet palette stuff, or like inks or contrast paints, whatever your weapon of choice is. But like these guys are most of the way there. That's most of what they need, and they've got all their shadows in place, which is like, that's huge. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna define these guys a little bit further, but I don't think I'm gonna use the wet palette. I'm just gonna use my little, I have a little porcelain ink tray guy it's like a Japanese inkwell. Yeah, I'm just gonna do a little bit of like highlighting, kind of edge highlighting, dry brushing, stuff like that. Like with these guys, I just want to get rid of some of the coffee staining, and I want to, you know, just like put those little details in there to make things pop out. So one reason why I like this little inkwell thing, this little Japanese inkwell, is because it's like totally reusable. Unlike those little plastic palettes that they're kind of built for like one use for one painting project. I've seen people where they'll like prime their paint palettes, like they'll paint stuff and then they'll like prime the paint palettes and use the paint palettes again. Which, I don't know, it's kind of silly to me. Like this guy, I can actually put him in like the dishwasher if I wanted to, you know? But yeah, so these guys, you can see how the wet palette will get you the vast majority of the way there. And then, you know, you can just come back in and define all those little details. You know, the wet palette is gonna get you that base layer, and then like when you're coming in and doing your details, it's actually like pretty satisfying to come in and just, you know, like boop them on the nose. And just, you know, work in those like last little details that really make things pop, you know, and kind of like sell the paint job. But yeah, like I don't like coffee staining. I want to get rid of coffee staining. And if you do dry brushing and things like that, you know, like if you have a wet paint and then you're painting and then you start to like peel up paint, just stop, you know, just put it down. Like if you're working on something and you spent a lot of time kind of developing shades and you know you're getting your mini to look a certain way, and then you do something where you just kind of destroy all the work that you've done, just put it down. Just walk away, you know, just put it down and then come back to it later when it's dry. when you're fresh, you know, like don't get mad, you know, just walk away from it. So anyways, yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it. Like I could just do, you know, I could just call them done. I could just black the base and then be like, yep, we're done. That's literally most of the way there. And then like this look, this kind of like scorched earth, kind of like rough cobblestone look is pretty universal. Like it goes along with like everything that you can think of. Like these guys, I want to use these guys for Frostgrave, but you know, like Dobermans, they actually did use them as war dogs. They used them in the Pacific Theater because it was too hot for animals like German Shepherds, which were traditional, you know, military police dogs. So maybe I'll use these guys for Ghost Archipelago instead. Definitely some, I like them though, I like them a lot. Some cool looking dobies. And then, you know, my Cane Corsos, like, you can see right here, you can see the coffee staining, and you can see that there was like a seam line there that was pretty much invisible. I'm just gonna cover all that up. You might be saying, why did you do all that stuff with the, like, why did you do the Zenithal highlight if you're gonna paint his belly white and his back black? It's there. It's there. You just can't You can't really see the natural shadows because of the way these guys are shaded. But you know, like the reason why animals, like the vast majority of animals that are under 200 pounds have some form of counter shading, and it's a natural form of camouflage for them. It helps them to blend into their environment. So if you're looking at them from below, if you're prey, then you're looking at them from below, they look like the sky above them. And then if you're a predator looking at them from above, then they look like the ground below them. Or at least that's what they're the whole theory about counter shading is. But humans are an outlier. Most animals that are under 200 pounds have some form of counter shading. And I'm gonna go in and do metallic metal on these guys on their collars, I think, or leather or something later. But I'm gonna do my, base coats first. And then, but like, see, that's most of the way there. That was a pretty quick and easy paint job. Gotta boop you on the nose too. Boop. That's a good boy. And then I can, if I want to develop the fur on the back later, I can dry brush, I can draw in fur, with strokes or whatever. All right, I'm gonna work on these guys a little bit on their cloaks. Let's see, I think I'm gonna use some of this P3 Gnarls green. It's kind of like a forest green. It's bright and saturated compared to other colors I've been using, pretty muted, like olives and dark browns. But what I want to do is just make those highlights stand out. So I don't want it to be super opaque. I don't want it to be like super thick. Whoops. Just want to kind of pick out some of those highlights. Get rid of the coffee staining. Same thing. But I'm trying to keep my airbrush highlights, my natural lights in place, so I know where my highlights belong. And then just want to get rid of the coffee staining and make some kind of saturated highlights instead of these like washed out highlights. So now I'm going to do the same thing with the leather. Just get rid of a lot of the kind of undersaturated. Like, you can see where I got some greens in my browns and stuff. So I want to just kind of do some little highlights and stuff and make that look more like a leather. Like I've got all the shadows where I want them, but I need to kind of redefine those highlights a little bit. But you know, using my Zenithal to tell me where those highlights belong the whole time. But I want some like saturated colors. I don't want muted, dulled down colors. You can always go back and make them darker later. And go here, pick up these other little details, you know, more leather. And I'm gonna go in with, you know, different colors. I want these bows, for instance, to look like they're different from the leather that's on his gauntlets, you know? Maybe like a cherry or something like that. But these are very thin layers of paint. So I'm just kind of tinting. Like I'm not putting on thick layers of opaque paint. I'm just kind of putting on very thin layers of like a glaze. Just a very thin layer of paint. But the more, you know, the more variation in those browns, the better. I want these guys to look like they're not just all the same color, not just all washed one color of ink, which I did, you know, or couple of different colors. But that was for my base layer. So now I want to develop all those, that's a bolt, an arrow bolt. And now I want to go in and develop all of the details, you know, and make it pop, like sell all those details, add another layer of realism. And come in and do my highlights on my skin tones. Don't splatter. And I think I want these guys to have gray shirts and then maybe a little bit of salt and pepper in their hair. So I'm gonna mix up a gray. Just use a little bit of this Game Color Stonewall Gray and then a little bit of Thamar Black. Just for fun, I think I'm gonna make these little plumes on the backs of the arrows just a really bright orange, like some kind of weird pheasant, like kind of neon color, orange fire. Just do a little bit of edge highlighting. And I want to make these guys' armor, their chainmail, just really pop out because it's hard to see. Or actually, only this guy has it. He has this cool looking chainmail. This guy has like rivets, you know, and then an arrowhead and things like that. But otherwise, they don't have very much metal on them. So I'm going to use this really bright aluminum color, this Blvck Model Air aluminum, which is just like the brightest. It's really nice to work with because it's just like goes on super smooth. I'm gonna use a little teeny tiny brush to just do a little bit of edge highlighting with that to really make those little links pop out in like the chainmail. Make the little rivets pop out. Alright, these guys are looking really good. I think the only thing I want to do is maybe I'm going to throw a little bit of this green shader on them, and then I'm just going to do a little tiny bit of extra highlights on like their capes and stuff. Otherwise, like, I'm not really sure what else to do with them besides basing. So yeah, I'm going to use some game wash. This stuff. And normally, you know, I would not do metallic, or I would do metallic colors last, especially with like really intense colors like this aluminum, because it can just contaminate everything. But because I'm using my inkwell, I'm not really too worried about it. But the yeah, those little metallic flakes can just contaminate everything on your palette, turn everything into a metallic color. But the putting a wash on your minis after you've done, you know, like a lot of like highlighting and stuff like that, or and different you know, brushwork can like tie everything together and then make your brush work just look a lot smoother, and then so it's a little bit less perceptible like where your little brush strokes are. Okay, and while it's still like ever so slightly damp, I'm gonna come in with this super light green and then just do a little bit of dry brushing. Well, sort of like wet blending, dry brushing, just to pick up those raised edges, create some highest highlights that aren't, you know, washed out. I want them to be like bright colors, kind of saturated colors. But having it be like slightly damp is going to get rid of that chalkiness of the dry brushing, which, you know, isn't a big deal as much with like fabric and stuff like that as is with like flesh tones. but still, I want it to be a smooth looking highlight. Okay, time to move on to basing. I'm going to go for a kind of like tundra look, I think. I have some of these grass tufts that I got, these Army Painter winter tufts I want to try out. They're pretty huge. I think I'm going to chop them in half or something. Maybe make some little ones out of them. But first I'm gonna go around and I'm gonna dry brush the bases on these guys. And then to bump up the contrast, try and start with my highest highlights first, and then work my way down. Alright, so I thought long and hard about it. I've got some like fake snow. I've got, I have like fake snow effects. I have static grass tufts. But the thing that I like about this kind of like scorched earth look is that it just goes along with everything. They could be in the middle of, a dungeon in the Underdark. They could be in Frostgrave. So it's very utilitarian. So I'm just going to leave these guys like this for now, and then I'm going to paint the bases black. So I'm just going to use a little bit of Thamar black, and I'm going to go around and I'm going to use a flat. This is a flat, it just has a flat tip. And I'm just going to go around and make these guys' bases black and call it good. I might go back and do something else later as far as basing goes, but for now I kind of like how this looks. Alright, that's it. You made it. I know it's a long video. I probably could have edited everything down into a 20-minute supercut. I've been working on that, with YouTube. Me and YouTube, we've been working on that. Yeah, I'm really happy with these guys. I'm happy that they have a spot in my collection. Don't know why I didn't have any archers out of all of my minis. I'm just noticing now doing the video editing, I still need to do the collars on the dogs and stuff like that, and I could keep going with these guys, but yeah, so thanks for watching, thanks for being patient, and hope that you feel inspired and want to play some like Frostgrave or D&D or something. So welcome to all my new subscribers, and take care of yourselves, wash your hands, blow your nose, look both ways when you're across the street and all that, and take care of yourselves until the next time I see you.